Hi guys, back doing more rugby content. Realised the last video could look a bit harsh that I made. Like, I know it does look a bit critical, but looking at it you do kind of think the home nations didn't really perform too well, did they? Like, apart from a few good moments by England and Ireland and Scotland leading the way. Like, both Scotland and Ireland beat Australia, and Scotland obviously losing to South Africa, Ireland losing to the All Blacks. You're kind of thinking to yourself, yeah, it's not great. That's why I was saying it. And then obviously the thing that concerns me the most, being an Irish fan, is obviously I care most about the Irish team. So I want them to do well. The Champions Cup's kicked off. Just talking about round one. I've recorded the Leinster game against Claremont, so don't ruin it. Don't give me any spoilers. But haven't watched that yet. But I just have to say, on a more positive note, great performances by both Jack Crowley and Sam Prendergast, and in particular Sam Prendergast. Very impressed with him against Bristol. And Jack Crowley led really well in that game and kicked brilliantly against Stade Francais. Stade Francais lost the fucking plot, didn't they? What were they doing? What were they thinking? Two of the most obvious red cards you'll ever see. Both real cheap shots as well, like real dirty play. And then their captain was lucky not to get a yellow at the end, but I think the ref, Luke Pearce, just said, you've already had two red cards, so we're not going to send another one off. Which I kind of get, I'm kind of like, alright, fair enough. In the context of the game, sending another lad off isn't really going to do much, but had there been no cards already, he was definitely gone to the bin, put it that way. Huge congrats to Shane Daly on making his 100 cap as well. He's a player I'm very fond of. And that's what I mean, like, when people say we don't have the depth, or if we, like, a fifth of our team, I keep saying that, a third of our team is Southern Hemisphere, when you look at it, or at least a third of the team starting against Australia was. And look, if they come over and want to play for Ireland, great. And looking at that quarter-final game against New Zealand, and I know we have to accept the Joker's tag, but to be fair, we didn't show up, and the only players that scored were Kiwis, Bundy Aki and Jamison Gibson Park. So there's an argument there. They showed up and they scored for us. Now Mac Hansen scored our only try in the group stage against South Africa. And obviously Rob Herring scoring as well in the group stage. He South African born. But I think we do have enough depth. That's the big issue that I have. I don't think that there's a lack of depth. I just think a lot of players get left out. They don't get seen. How many caps could Stuart McCluskey have had if he was from the Southern Hemisphere? I think he's an underrated player. I know Chris Farrell is a very good player. Obviously he's had so much shit going on in the background. Like, there's been some legal battle with him, which I don't know an awful lot about, so that's why he's gone. But get these players out, get them caps. I just feel like they put these Antipodean players in like a third of our team. So 5 players, you've got James Lowe, Bundy Aki, Mac Hansen, Gibson Park and Finlay Bealham. So like 5 of the starting team are foreign born. You're there kind of going, do we really need to be doing that? And my argument would be, you've got players who can fit into that position. So like at 12 you'd put Stuart McCluskey, or you could put Robbie Henshaw. Now I'm a big fan of Bundy Aki, I'm just going to say that. But it's the fact that we look abroad before we look at our own players. I just think we don't have the depth when we do. But we're very narrow-minded in our selection, from what I can see. You know, particularly like seeing the Leinster setup. It's like we need to mould you into the player we want you to be, rather than working with the player that you are, which I think is definitely something I give credit to the Antipodeans for. They definitely work with what they've got and the talent that they have. That's why they've got such a variety of player, because they work with what they have. They don't say, oh, we need you to be this player instead. No, and that's a really hard thing to do, which is kind of like, it's a lazy attitude, I think, in Irish rugby, where we're relying on overseas players, and then most of the players are private school players. And the academy system, like, it is brilliant. And when you play against these teams, like when I played against them, you feel the difference. They're so much more well drilled. You know, their passing is very crisp. Their set piece is very good. But how's it not going to be? You know, like, they have scrum coaches, line-out coaches. Not just a forwards coach. They'll have guys who do specifics with line-outs and scrums. Kick restarts. So they are coming at it from a significant advantage. And then there seems like a laziness where these guys are already there. You know, they don't need much work on. But I've seen guys who were average enough players, and then you see them a few years later after being in the private school system, and they've just improved so much. Like, they're coming at it from such an advantage. And then coming at it from my point of view, and lads I would have known. And like, look, I've met loads of sound lads from private schools who have helped me develop my game, so nothing against them if they're nice lads or whatever. If you can get the opportunity, go for it. You know, there's definitely something to be said. Like, there's a lot of good players that come from it, and they are good enough, and their skills have been maxed, you know. But I'll just give you an example, like Tyg Furlong, non-private school player, Sean O'Brien. There's a toughness they have that a lot of Irish players don't have. That I see. Jamie Osborne, another one. You know, he was a GA player as well, but look at Jamie Osborne. I think he's only played fullback for Leinster twice before he played against South Africa. At altitude, at fullback, in a position that he's not familiar with. You can say what you want, he played fucking amazing. A few drop balls, but Jesus, that's been hypercritical. He scored a try, and he dropped the ball, and missed the tackle on Aronson, and bounced straight back from it. Fair fucks, like, I mean, that's incredible. So, like, there's a few Irish players right now that we should be looking at. So, like, he can cover fullback if you need him to. I mean, Keenan, for me, is really good. And then if you're not going to put Frawley at 10, have him as your utility back, because he can cover so many positions. I just think it's great to see Prendergast and Crowley having a good game. And then we've got the obvious talent that we all know we have, but I don't like seeing a team where you've got, you know, only private school and intimidating players. That's just so narrow-minded. They've already been developed then in other systems, so you have very little work to do with them. And I mean, that makes sense, but you also have to go to yourself, are you that lazy that you're not going to put in the effort with them? And I saw the Rugby Pod doing an interesting video. Love that channel, by the way. But how in Ireland we don't really do a scholarship system, and it's true, you know. We don't really do it. I think like Caelan Darris was a scholarship student, because he's from Ballina and Mayo, and then played for Blackrock. And yeah, good player, very good player. But I don't see an awful lot of scholarships. We don't really do it over here. It just annoys me, because look at what we already have. And if we broadened our horizons, imagine how good Ireland could get. I'm not even talking about myself, like some of the lads that I coach that just aren't getting seen and aren't getting selected. You're kind of like, fucking hell, they're good enough. And a few of the lads they played against last week are Leinster, and you're there going, like, there was very little between them and our lads. You know, I couldn't even tell who the players were. And yeah, look, I get that lads are going to have an off game. I'm not going to be that arsehole who's hypercritical. I know it all sounded like doom and gloom, but if you were to make a team with all Irish players, you could do it. You know, you could have Andrew Porter, you could have Ronan Kelleher, Dan Sheehan, Tyg Furlong, Tom O'Toole. You could have, I know I said I wanted to put Porter back to tight head, but even if you did, Michael Milne I think is a very good player. Jack Boyle coming through. I think John Ryan has a few years left in him. I think Stephen Archer has passed it for sure. Doubt James Cronin will come back at this stage, but what a player. Really good player. Ollie Jaeger, I hope he does well. I like him. I'm a fan of his. I know he played overseas, but he is Irish. Played at Nice. I went to Blackrock and Newbridge College, if I'm not mistaken. He's a funny accent, but that's because I think his dad is Dutch. He was born in London. His mum is Irish, I think. Yeah, I think. But yeah, he's an Irish player. And it's good to have him back, and I think he's a technically good player, but yeah, we're going to remain to be seen. We need to create that depth, as I was talking about in the last video. Second row, I think we're sorted. Someone who I think can feel a bit aggrieved would be Ross Maloney. Like, you look at James Ryan, Joe McCarthy, Ryan Baird. Ross Maloney has been, as I say, reliability is key, and he's been there for Leinster for years. You know, and then Snyman gets brought in. South Africans, tell me how to pronounce his first. I know it's RG, but you guys go yeah or something. I know it's Snyman though. I know all the controversy that brought with Leinster and Munster, if there wasn't already enough. I was at that game when Snyman slammed the ball down for Leinster against Munster. Oh, Munster fans were livid. I think I posted that on YouTube. But you've got enough good Irish players. I know they're thinking they want to go for this now and they want to win the Champions Cup, having come so close, and then bottled it. They did, like what we've been saying with Ireland. They bottled it at the end. Watching that game with my brother at home, we were there saying Leinster are the better team here. But like, for all the coaches they have, it's very hard to have sympathy with them because they've so much resources and funds, you know what I mean? Like, they're very well resourced. You see the setup, like, and it's insane. When you're actually there looking at it, you're going, wow, these guys are stacked. The best of the best coaches, the best of the best facilities. And now French rugby obviously has money in it as well, but you think to yourself, Leinster going to the corner so many times and Ross Byrne not getting everything on his kicks, you know. I know it's hard, look, won't be too harsh, but what I'd be more harsh about is not realising Toulouse have the best defensive maul in the whole competition. That's their bread and butter stuff, you know. And yet Leinster kept turning down the 3 points and going to the corner. Whereas when Toulouse got an opportunity, in fairness to Blair Kinghorn, I know I had to go with him for that that post that he made when Scotland were playing Ireland in the World Cup, but he nailed his kicks, he did very well. And then Frawley tried a drop goal at the end, which in fairness, like, was difficult enough, you know. Now he'd be kicking himself about it, but he certainly made up for it in South Africa. But the point I was just going to make was that should have never gotten to that stage. They shouldn't have allowed Toulouse in that game because they were miles the better team. But whenever Toulouse did attack, they looked a lot more dangerous. I don't know, it's obviously something in the psyche of Irish players. Has to be. You know, we've got so much depth, but You can't just chuck a lad in the deep end when he's got no game time and expect him to play well. I think Clarkson proved himself. I think he did very well. Huge shout out to him. I would like to see maybe Ollie Yeager and Tom Clarkson, and then we could keep Border at loosehead. But I'd like to put him back at tight head and then bring in Michael Milne, Jeremy Lockman, Jack Boyle hopefully as well, who looks like a good player. Good to see Dave Kilcoyne back as well. Hugely happy to see him. Craig Casey, big fan of Craig Casey. Took 2 massive hits against Fiji. Thought he should have got man of the match if I'm being honest. Hardy fella, isn't he? Played very well, got a try as well against Fiji. Stood up for Kelleher as well at the end. Let's get some more Irish talent out there. Calvin Nash on the right, Stockdale on the left, McCluskey in the centre, maybe even Osborne. Ringrose playing very well, good to see. And then if Crowley and Prendergast keep playing the way they are, great. I think second row and back row were perfectly fine. I think we've got some great back rowers, and second row, like 5 decent players you can put in there. But I think Ross Maloney wasn't treated very well. He would have liked to have broken, I'd say, a Leinster Cup record. Kind of reminds me of James Tracy. I know James Tracy was a hooker, not a second row, but he was one of those reliable players you could count on to play for Leinster. Maybe not international standard, but playing for Leinster is very impressive still. Stephen Archer for Munster. That's great to see, and I'm sure those lads would be delighted doing that. So, look, let's start creating the depth, But great to see at least Leinster and Munster getting off to good starts. I know at Ulster it was harder. And then Connacht, obviously a bit of another one I like using, a bit of a mixed bag, but be good to see them all doing well. So hopefully they can all do well in this year's Champions Cup. I'll see you in the next one, guys.